Freddie Mercury, the untold stories we forgot. He was a rock god, a master of the stage, and a voice that defined a generation. Freddie Mercury, the crowned king of Queen, dazzled the world with his flamboyant showmanship and incredible 4-octave vocal range. His performances were legendary, his anthems timeless, and his persona larger than life. But before all that, before the stadiums and the name Freddie Mercury, there was a boy named Farrokh Bulsara. His story is one we've almost completely forgotten. It's not just a tale of rock and roll excess, it's a story of displacement, fear, and escape. Before he became a rock icon, he was a refugee fleeing a violent revolution in his homeland. How did this journey, this overlooked chapter of his life, shape the legend we think we know? This is the story of a quiet boy who lost his home and then conquered the world to create a new one. Before the crown, the iconic mustache, and the stadium-shaking anthems, there was a boy from a tropical island. At just 17, he was forced to flee his home with his family to escape a bloody revolution that claimed thousands of lives. This isn't just a forgotten verse from a Queen's song. It's the real-life trauma that shaped one of music's greatest legends. Long before the grey skies of London, Farrokh Bulsara's world was bursting with color. Born on September 5, 1946, in Stone Town, Zanzibar, a sun-soaked island off the coast of East Africa, he was the son of Parsi parents who had emigrated from India. His father, Bohemian Rhapsody, worked as a cashier for the British Colonial Office, giving the family a comfortable life. They lived in a lovely apartment with sea views and had domestic help, including a nanny for young Farrokh. His childhood was a blend of two worlds. At home, the ancient Parsi culture and Zoroastrian faith was central, while Zanzibar itself was a British protectorate, tying the family directly to the empire. This duality marked his early years. At 8, he was sent thousands of miles away to St. Peter's School, a British-style boarding school in Panchgani, India. It was here, in the structured environment of boarding school, that two key elements of the future Freddie Mercury began to emerge. He started formal piano lessons and discovered he had an incredible knack for hearing a song on the radio and playing it back perfectly. At 12, he joined his first band, a rock and roll cover group called the Heck. It was also at St. Peter's that he began asking people to call him Freddy, the first step in crafting a new identity. He spent nearly a decade there, a boy of Indian heritage, living on a British-governed African island, being educated in India. From a young age, he was a cultural chameleon. In 1963, at 17, he returned to Zanzibar to be with his family. A young man on the brink of adulthood, stepping back into a home he barely recognized. The Zanzibar that Freddie returned to was a powder keg. For centuries, the island's Arab elite had held economic and political power, creating deep resentment among the African majority. In December 1963, Zanzibar gained independence from Britain, and just a month later, in January 1964, the island erupted. The Zanzibar Revolution was swift and brutal, a violent uprising aimed at overthrowing the Sultan and the ruling Arab government. But the violence quickly escalated, targeting the island's wealthy Arab and South Asian minorities. Thousands were killed in the streets. For families like the Bulsaras of Indian descent, and linked to the former British colonial government, it was a terrifying situation. Suddenly, they were no longer safe in their own home. Their comfortable life vanished overnight, replaced by fear. Like tens of thousands of others, the Bulsara family had no choice but to flee for their lives. In the spring of 1964, 17-year-old Freddie, along with his parents Bomi and Jed, and his younger sister Kashmira, packed what little they could and escaped the island. They became refugees, heading to a small, unassuming house in Feltham, Middlesex, a suburb of London. They had escaped the violence, but Farrokh Bulsara's world had been shattered. He would never return to the land of his birth. The contrast between sunny, vibrant Zanzibar and the dreary, grey suburbs of London couldn't have been more jarring. For a teenager who had just fled a revolution, the culture shock was immense. Freddie went from a life of relative privilege to being an immigrant in a working-class English town, an outsider in every sense. His ethnicity, background, and accent set him apart immediately. This profound sense of not belonging became a powerful driving force in his life. He enrolled at Isleworth Polytechnic to study art and later moved on to the prestigious Ealing Art College, where he earned a diploma in graphic art and design in 1969. Art school became his sanctuary, a place where being different wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated. It was here that he began to find his tribe, connecting with other creative, flamboyant misfits. And it was at Ealing that he met the men who would change his life forever: guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor, who played in a band called Smile. Freddie, with his growing confidence and artistic vision, became their biggest fan, offering unsolicited advice on their showmanship and performance. He saw something in them, and more importantly, he saw a path for himself. When Smile's lead singer quit in 1970, Freddie seized his chance. He didn't just join the band, he took it over, with a force of will that would define his entire career. He convinced May and Taylor that he was their future. The first order of business: a name change. He dismissed Smile as too meek. He wanted something regal, universal, and just a bit outrageous. He chose Queen. His next act of reinvention was even more personal. He legally changed his name from Farrokh Bulsara to Freddie Mercury. This wasn't just a stage name, it was a deliberate shedding of his past. He was casting off the identity of the shy, displaced Parsi refugee and forging a new one entirely on his own terms. Farrokh Bulsara was the boy who had his home taken from him. Freddie Mercury would be the man who built a kingdom. This outsider's perspective became Queen's secret weapon. Freddie had no interest in fitting into the established rock and roll mold. He wanted to shatter it. He pushed the band to be more theatrical, more ambitious, and more daring than anyone else. This drive produced hits like Killer Queen and the 6-minute operatic masterpiece Bohemian Rhapsody, songs that defied every industry convention and proved that his vision was unlike any other. The flamboyance, the theatricality, the refusal to be categorized, it all stemmed from a man who knew, deep down, what it felt like to be on the outside looking in. Even at the height of his fame, the echoes of Farrokh Bulsara and his journey lingered. The larger-than-life stage persona of Freddie Mercury, the strutting, preening commander of stadiums, was, in many ways, a shield. It was a character of immense power and confidence, crafted by a man who had once felt powerless. His infamous declaration, "I'm not going to be a star, I'm going to be a legend," wasn't to just brab up. It was a statement of intent from someone who had to rebuild his identity from scratch. This duality was a constant theme. In public, he was a hedonistic rock god. In private, friends described him as shy, gentle, and intensely private. While surrounded by adoring fans, he spoke of a deep loneliness and a longing for connection, perhaps stemming from the profound loss of his home and identity as a teenager. He never returned to Zanzibar and rarely, if ever, spoke of his refugee past. He downplayed his heritage, constructing the persona of a British rock star so completely that for decades, many fans had no idea he wasn't born in England. He had become Freddie Mercury so thoroughly that Farrokh Bulsara was all but erased. But the experiences of that boy, the displacement, the feeling of being an outsider, and the fierce will to create a new, unshakable sense of self-worth, the very foundation upon which the legend of Freddie Mercury was built. Freddie's entire life was about defying labels and overcoming the hand he was dealt. His music became an anthem for anyone who ever felt like an outsider. What's the one Queen song that makes you feel like you can take on the world? Share your power anthem in the comments below. And if you've been moved by this untold story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more hidden histories. The world remembers Freddie Mercury for his spectacular life and his tragic, untimely death. But in focusing only on the rock god, we forget the refugee. We forget the 17-year-old boy who fled terror and arrived in a cold foreign land with nothing but his family and his ambition. The story of Farrokh Bulsara isn't just a footnote in the life of Freddie Mercury, it's the entire preface. It's the key that unlocks the drive, creativity, and relentless need to perform and connect that defined him. He transformed the trauma of displacement into the theatrics of rock and roll, turning his otherness into his greatest strength. He built his own kingdom, on his own terms, and became more than a legend. He became a champion for all the outcasts, proving that sometimes the ones who feel like they don't belong anywhere are the ones who end up belonging to everyone.